A lot of times, promise could be slower than what we think. At the same time, the promise of God, it could be farther than what we thought. Because our sight a lot of time is short, we can't see everything in a full broad spectrum. So, like we said, the promise of God is sovereign. So let's come back to the question then. What are those conditions we likely need to fulfill? Um, I like to backtrack a little bit to kind of tie up the preceding to the current one here. So a lot of times, to every promise, there's a purpose. Promises do not just come exist in vacuum. There's a purpose to every promise. For you looking for a job, that job is a vehicle taking you to your purpose. For you as a student, that school is a vehicle taking you to your purpose. And what is the ultimate purpose? Is anything that we do a destination that gives glory to God, that gives expression of the glory of God. That is actually when a promise is actually being fulfilled. So, what are those conditions now? A lot of times as well, we always think that based on our human, which is fine, it's fine. And a lot of times we always assume that purpose is based on a positive outcome of what we actually want. But that may not be totally true. That may not be totally 100%. Sometimes promise, it could be different from the picture that you're seeing. You may see yourself, God said you will probably drive a car, and you are seeing yourself in a white car. How about if God decides to give you a black car? Possible. Or sometimes you're thinking of a particular job, and this is the kind of salary you want to earn from that particular salary. And God can give you, God can make a way for something higher or something lesser than that. So, but a lot of times, if you're thinking about something higher and you got something lesser, and God actually gave you something lesser, that can also happen too. But a lot of times, because we now say, oh, God is not faithful and this or that, because we can actually, like brother said, we can actually get 100% full. The only reason why we're talking about Joseph now, do you know the story of Joseph that we're talking about today is a journey of 17 years. Sorry, 13 years. Joseph discovered purpose at about 17. He fulfilled that purpose at 30. So that's a journey of 13 years in total of being sold, of being in Egypt, of being in prison, in Potiphar's house, then from there now. So a lot of times, promise could be slower than what we think. At the same time, promise of God, it could be farther than what we thought. Because our sight a lot of time is short, we can't see everything in a full broad spectrum. So, like we said, the promise of God is sovereign. So let's come back to the question then. What are those conditions we likely need to fulfill? Like our brother have perfectly mentioned, I will say number one, every promise builds capacity in us. If you've not built capacity, there is no way a promise comes to pass. Somebody whom, for example, you're going to be an employer of labor and you don't have no clue about how to manage people. How do you employ? How will you be an employer of labor? Never. It's probably not gonna work. So a lot of times the reason why we hear a promise, but it hasn't really come to full manifestation. The part is not on God. He has said it. He said, none of my word will return back to me void. So a lot of times it's about us. And it will always be a lot of times our own part. Are we walking? Are we building? That time is just like a seed. The day you plant a seed is not the day you get a fruit. There's your season where the seed is buried to the ground and you feel like it's lost. You feel like there's no hope anymore. You feel like everything is crushing because that seed is in the ground. People will even walk on that seed and they are trampling on that particular seed, but the seed is there. It's just gathering some moisture, gathering some nutrients, and from there, it bursts open. And that process of bursting open is also very stressful. There are sometimes things are not working the way it should be. God is testing our character within us. God is building our inner resilience in us. He is also building our capacity. When I take you to that palace, can you handle the weight of it? That time where the seed is growing, that hibernation period, is putting some structures in place, building some things in place, building some stones in place that will be the total man that he wants us to be. So, prerequisites, those conditions, I will probably say, building our inner man is one of those things, is one of those areas. At the same time as well, there are some certain precepts. Any promise you hear from the mouth of somebody, any promise you hear by dream, any promise you hear by the word of wisdom, anybody we hear, promise we hear by the word of knowledge, let it be traceable to a word you can hang on to. If it's not traceable to a word you can hang on to, it can only remain in the realm of the spirit. To bring it to life, we need to be able to trace it to that word, because the day's trials will come. Like when Paul was going on that particular journey, he said, no life will be lost because it was revealed to me. Yes, the storm was there, the sea was raging, but there is a revealed part, which is the word that he has seen something. And from there, all he did was going to sleep. So there are sometimes the word, the manifestation is not coming as yet. Once we can hold on to the word, God, this is what you said concerning this. I'm working on this particular thing. This journey, I'm holding on to it. I'm not losing hope. Fear will come, doubt will come, a lot of things will challenge our ways, but being able to be persistent, being resilient, and not giving up. Because if your day of giving up may be that day when you're about to actually get to the end of the road. Life generally is not giving on the easy path to anybody.
Yeah.
If you're not persistent at what you do, trust me, you may not. And these are, like I said before, there's a promise, there's principle, and there's prophecy. The place of principle, God does not bargain with the place of principle at all. And that's why people of the world leverage on this more than Christians. A lot of times Christians will bank on prophecy and will leave the place of principle, and we are expecting the promise to come to pass. So there's a promise of sowing and reaping.
Mm-hmm.
There's a promise of you pour water into the ground, it makes a seed happen. There's a promise of seed time and harvest time. So we need to be able to put some structures, some principles in place. If we're able to locate the principles of God concerning that particular thing, for sure, it's only a matter of time. Things come to fruition.
Thank you. I think one key takeaway from what you said is that the promise of God, obtaining the promise of God, is a process. And it's something that we often don't think about, that we just feel that because it's been spoken, because it's in the word, then I should automatically receive it. But it is a process, and it's also a process where God is refining our character and equipping us with those, those skills that we need, the traits that we need to be able to operate when we get to that place of promise. So when we receive a promise, a word from God, it's not just to wait for it to manifest. We also need to go back to the word. Okay, if God has promised me a financial breakthrough, what are the precepts I need to put in place to be able to obtain my financial breakthrough, or to be able to work at this higher level that God has promised me? So there are precepts. So how do we as Christians, when we're in this phase where we're waiting and we can't see the bigger picture, there are moments of frustration where you can feel angry with God, mad at God, you don't understand, because a lot of times our mindset is that if I'm walking faithfully with God and I'm doing everything right, then automatically certain things should fall into my lap, right? I should have financial blessings. I shouldn't suffer. Why is this happening to me when I've been so faithful to God? So, how do we really deal with this and continue to walk with God? Enjoy not just walking with Him, but enjoying His presence and letting go of that place of I know Einstein referred to it as a sense of entitlement. I'm entitled to this blessing.
Yeah. So when things aren't going the way you want them to, and how do you go about it? I feel if there's a word, it's faith, right? You just have to have the faith of David. You have to have a rock solid faith. And also you have to emulate kind of like Job, right? Job was living in God's promises and had the promises taken away from him, right? And he got the promises taken away from him, and I don't know except, but I don't think any prophet came to him and told him, "Oh, this is going to be replenished back to you a sevenfold," right? But Job actually continued with his way of life, right? People were wondering, what's wrong? The whole thing has turned against you, right? And that is even the worst kind of experience to go through, because obviously there's a popular saying, "He who has fallen doesn't feel, does he's not afraid of any downfall." But
That
when you are up and you fall, right? It's a very painful one. And he fell, and there was no prophet that was sent to him to say, "Oh, I am from the Lord, and I tell you that you are going to rise again," right? There was none. Instead, all he had was naysayers. He's even his beloved wife was still telling him, "Hey, this thing is going," but he had a solid faith. Also, sometimes it's also more of a spiritual thing. Many are the trials of the righteous, but he overcometh them all. I never read in the Bible where they say many are the trials of the sinners and they overcome them all, right? So you be already being a child of God, right? You are going to have tons of trials, right? You are going to have to climb through a lot of things, right? It comes with the territory. That's what it comes with keeping your soul intact. So there is that part of you as a believer, you are going to pass through some trials that a non-believer doesn't have to pass through, right? Because he's already of sin and he's of the world, right? But when you're not of the world, you're going to face resistance that worldly people don't face. Daniel is a perfect example. He prayed, his prayer has been answered. Is the warfare for the prayer to land. He's facing warfare for the prayer to land, right? A sinner doesn't have to deal with all those things, right? But him, he's facing spiritual warfare, right? How do you account that in the process? So he could be saying, "Oh, see this sinner, he just got his own like that. Me, I've been praying and fasting here and refasting and refasting." But there are tons of spiritual warfare we actually do not see,
Mhm.
right? There are tons of spiritual warfare we do not see. And but the Bible, like the word always says, "Hey, this is this is going in the long run, it's going to work for our good." So we have faith. We will always have the solid faith. We make sure that we are not lacking on our end in terms of capabilities, but at the same time we should understand that many are the trials. You're going to have trials. It's just going to because of the decision you make to be in the Lord, be in the Lord.
Okay. So I think we're going to wrap up soon, but I just wanted to us to end on a high note just to encourage people. A lot of people who, again, we've talked about the promises of God. that it's not straightforward. It's a process. And I feel there are just so many facets to it. And sometimes we want to simplify the process. God has given me a promise. I wait, it comes to pass, but it doesn't happen that way. And in that season, in between the promise and the manifestation, there's so much that can happen. And some people have even been derailed in their faith. So, how can we encourage ourselves as Christians to continue to walk with God, find the joy of His salvation, continue to love Him, serve Him, whether we see a manifestation or we do not see a manifestation, just like David was able to encourage himself in the Lord? How can we encourage ourselves and continue in this walk of faith?
Yeah, just generally to somebody who may be kind of will stumble on this, I just want to let you know that God's delay is not necessarily a denial. God's silence in your situation may not actually mean that He's not there. At the same time as well, God's timing may not necessarily be your timing. It may look like it's getting late, it's almost over, the delay is here, years are going in and out, but I assure you, He's coming big. He's never short of time. He's always on time. And God's plan, a lot of time, like I said, is always bigger than our expectation. When it comes big and He finds you where you're supposed to. And that's one thing we should never forget. When opportunity is very disastrous for a kairos time, which is kind of in quotes, opportunity to come, and you're not there. If He doesn't find you, that may be disastrous, and it may be difficult to retrieve or kind of rewind the hands of time back. The relationship is very important because that intimacy, when He called you to Himself, not to any other person, not on assignment. And the more you can know Him, the more you can try. If you know somebody, the person will never tell you good morning and you have to go check. If you go check outside, it means it's either you don't know the person or the person has been lying to you for a long time. So the more you know that person, is the
That's
person
funny.
of Christ, the more you know Him, the more you can bank on this. He can take His word to the bank and you can sit on it regardless of when it's going to come. And when I look back at what happened to a lot of all these disciples in their time, what did they see that we, our generation, are not seeing? People like John the Beloved, he said that man was thrown in the island of Patmos. The meaning of Patmos, it means a rocky place, a place, island of death, where there are scorpions, where there are snakes, where there are scorpions. But do you know, in that same island of Patmos, that is where he said, I saw the Lord. And a revelation of heaven was made open to him. And that was why we can be able to still refer to the book of Revelations today. So
Yeah.
despite in that same situation, he was still able. So that's something that we experienced. The same thing for Stephen. These guys, they were stoning them to death, and they said they saw something that was different. It's just a pity in our days that materialism, physical things we can lay our hands on, are the things we are looking onto. But we've forgotten that he said we should seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. That's why I said principles in the kingdom is very important. The more we are sold out to the things of God and His righteousness. He said all these other things. He didn't say he would be waiting on it. He said it will be added. They are just an icing on the cake. Don't spend so much time looking on the icing without building the cake. No matter how much icing you put together, it's going to fall like a pack of cards. There are some times where you check yourself, you know that God is with you in this journey, and you also know that the hand of the devil is not in it. And that's where I probably say the ultimate surrender. Sleep on it. Even Jacob, at that particular point in time, he said he went to a place, he put a stone on his head, and he slept off. And that was where the angel descended. There are sometimes, even in the face of a storm, he said Jesus was sleeping in the boat when there was in the face of a storm. When Jesus is in your boat, even in the storm, sleep on it. There are sometimes it's called ultimate surrender. When you surrender to Him, that is where He actually steps in and said, I'm taking the wheel, and the moment changes for you. So be encouraged, don't give up, and don't lose hope.
Thank you both very much. This has been a very profound, enriching, and encouraging discussion. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, for joining this conversation. Would love to hear from you. Where are you in your journey with God? Have you received a promise? Are you in that place of waiting? Or maybe you're in the place of you've received, there's been a manifestation. What was the journey like for you? What was the process like for you? And what did you take away? Were there any key takeaways from today's conversation? Till we see you next time, God bless you.